Hello and welcome to the Gameplay Cast review for Book 1 in the Warhammer Horus Heresy series, Horus Rising. Horus Rising, written by Dan Abnett, tells the story of Horus, the Emperor's favourite son, having recently ascended to Imperial Warmaster and leader of the final stages of humanity's Great Crusade. It focuses on one of my all-time favourite characters, Garviel Loken. He too is raised to a position of influence and witnesses the pressure placed on Horus and his legion, the Lunar Wolves, firsthand. The blurb from the book reads as follows. It is the 31st millennium. Under the benevolent leadership of the immortal Emperor, the Imperium of Man has stretched out across the galaxy. It is the golden age of discovery and conquest. But now, on the eve of victory, the Emperor leaves the front lines, entrusting the Great Crusade to his favourite son, Horus. Promoted to Warmaster, can the idealistic Horus carry out the Emperor's grand plan, or will this promotion sow the seeds of heresy among his brothers? Horus Rising is the first chapter in an epic tale of the Horus Heresy, a galactic civil war that threatened to bring about the extinction of humanity. As the first book in a very large series, it does a great job of introducing the Warhammer 40k universe and lore. I really love the characters of the Monoval, particularly as I've already mentioned, Garviel Loken. It also paints Horus as such an unbelievably awesome character that even though we know he turns bad, you really hope that there is some miracle and he stays true. Moreover, the perspectives of the regular human characters help ground the story and create a more immersive and believable Imperium of Man. Anyway, time for the all-important question. Is this book worthy of your Imperial credits? This one is an easy one. 100% yes. This book is a personal favourite and resulted in me chain-smoking at least the next 3 to 4 books in the series. If you like Warhammer or sci-fi, you should definitely give this one a go. The audiobook is excellent too. To decide if you should add Horus Rising to your reading list or not, continue watching to hear my justification as well as the final score out of 10. As always, fear not, O ye watchers, you will be kept in the dark, as major spoilers will be held until the end of the video. I remember my first reading of this book well. I was sat at my desk, back when we frequented offices, and while scrolling through the noise on Audible, I happened across the Warhammer Horus Heresy novels. Having some fond memories of collecting back in the day and loving the Emperor and Chaos lore, I gave the book a go. Unfortunately for my wallet, I have never looked back, and though late to the party, my return synced with the launch of the 10th edition of 40k, so much personal wealth was lost, as well as many more Audible credits. I really loved this book from start to finish. The main character Garviel Loken became an instant favourite. The details of his life as part of the Grand Crusade added real depth to the Space Marines and the Emperor's original plan for humanity. Witnessing Loken's ascent up the ranks, becoming closer to his beloved Warmaster Horus, and a member of the elite Mournival cemented my attachment to him, particularly as elements of his character and conduct are revealed. He is an intelligent, loyal and honourable warrior, but there is enough conflict and doubt within him to make him question the brutality of his existence as a weapon of the Imperium, which shows a wisdom many other Astartes lack. These qualities and his unwavering loyalty really sold me on my opinion of him. Moreover, his relationship and dialogue with Kirill Sindamin, his unofficial mentor, are excellent, particularly as events take a darker turn. In hindsight, the many characters encountered throughout the novel are by far its greatest success. We meet some really pivotal good and bad guys who will have leading roles in the heresy to come. We get just enough time with them during the various battles and meetings to know their personalities and form an opinion. Saul Tarvitz instantly comes to mind, being another standout character along with his fellow captain, Lucius. These character interactions and the backdrop of 30k and the Great Crusade combine into a really immersive and exciting read, all topped off with the blood, guts and gore we would expect from the Grim Dark, but with a more regal tone, as after all, this is the dusk before the Grim Dark, so to speak. First con, Erebus. Second con, Erebus. Third con, Erebus. Okay, in all seriousness, there isn't much not to like about this book, but since I'm in the cons section, I suppose I'd better come up with something. Well, there are a few plot contrivances, most of which I'll dig into in the spoiler section. For now, all I can say is that the timing of certain events, particularly at the end, conspire in just the perfect way to ensure that things play out a certain way. Okay, that's probably not very clear, but hit up the spoilers section and I'll reveal all. There's also a section where Erebus is made out to be this awesome swordsman and warrior. Maybe this is just my all-consuming hate for the guy, but I feel like this is not the character as is from this point forward and in 40k. I can't really see any other reference to him being an amazing duelist. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. Blinded by hate. So yeah, Erebus. Boo! Another element of weakness in the book is the author's tendency to go off on tangents with certain side characters. Hey wait, you said the characters were the strength. I did, but bear with me. Dan Abnett seems to do this occasionally in some of his books, and while most of the time it builds up the lore/narrative, offering a different perspective and more depth, sometimes these side stories just end up being pretty dull. I can see why he wrote them and where he was going, but they're just not as entertaining as having Loken and the boys cleaving Xenos scum in two. For example, there is a particular chapter very early in the book, so I don't mind mentioning it, that follows Igneous Carcassy, while he basically gets drunk and it just goes on a wee bit too long. Other minor issues that could be cited are the kind of samurai levels of romanticism surrounding the Astartes, which I personally love, but can make some of them feel a little bit 1D, though I would counter this and say the author goes a long way into trying to add personality and depth to everyone we meet, be that through their reputation, conduct, or descriptions. Other than that, however, there really isn't a lot to complain about in my opinion. Maybe you spotted something I didn't. If so, please let me know in the comments. I'd be interested in your critique.
Heresy grows from idleness.
For me personally, this book reignited my interest in Warhammer 40k as a whole. It provided my imagination with a really deep and well thought out world that captured me. It achieved this not only through thematic descriptions of brutal combats and the military machines of the Imperium, but through the interactions and stories of interesting characters that are more complex than the vanilla warrior monks they could have been. Horus, despite knowing what happens at the start, is just so likeable, the tragedy is already building in your mind. There are also some normal human characters who anchor the plot, giving greater insight into the world, as in a way we as the reader have more in common with them, so seeing the world through their eyes is a perspective that provides scale. I didn't mention this previously, but Mercedes Ollerton and her sessions with Loken are some of my favourite interactions, as we get to see how the Astartes and humans interact, as well as partial tales of Loken's past deeds and some self-reflection. Is it perfect? Probably not. The latter acts sacrifice some depth and detail in exchange for plot and story progression. Some of the subplots, as I touched on previously, drag on a bit too long, and yeah, the name Erebus is mentioned. I'm also probably a tad biased in my views, since I love the Warhammer 40k lore and the whole romanticised honourable warrior thing. If you aren't interested in the sci-fi warfare of the far future and the kind of brutal masculinity of the Astartes, then you might not love these books, or Warhammer 40k in general. Equally, fans of other factions outside of the Imperium and Chaos don't really get much in these books, as they are human-centric. Anyway, I'm rambling on. Scores on the doors time. All in all, I give this book a 9 out of 10. Garviel Loken is easily one of, if not, my all-time favourite Warhammer characters, as are the Lunar Wolves. As a Brit, I really get an SAS vibe from them, which I love. Moreover, the supporting characters are great. This is a brilliant book for anyone looking to get into Warhammer 30 or 40k. Firstly, was it just me who didn't realise till book 2 or 3 who Abaddon actually was? I swear, due to my weird pronunciation of his name in my headcanon, I didn't put 2 and 2 together until very late in the game. On this, the Mournival has got to be one of the coolest concepts in the book. I love how Horus is such a political beast, that he uses these guys to manipulate situations in his favour. I also love that he is humble and wise enough to listen to the counsel of his own elite captains, each of the members having different personalities, traits and opinions. For me personally, the 2 standout sections of the book happen in the first part. These are the initial assault on the planet to kill the false Emperor, and the battle with the demon-possessed Captain Jubal in the Whisper Hills that follows. The parody with the heresy and killing the Emperor was not lost on me, plus the epic fight of the spear tip through the false Emperor's palace was awesome. Our first meeting with the Warp Demon when Jubal is possessed by Samus is brutal. The otherworldliness of the encounter, how it's portrayed, the psychological effects on the witnesses, it's just really well written, and the disturbing scene it describes is truly horrifying. Murder was also notable too, as we are introduced to the Emperor's children, and Saul Tarvitz, who, from the perspective of a loyalist dog like me, is the absolute man, particularly in the events of the books that immediately follow this one. The contrivances that I mentioned earlier are mainly to do with the way certain events unfold, and that particularly in the last chapters, it just so happens that the Interrex captain is about to explain chaos to Loken, and just at that exact moment, everything turns south.
Convenient.
At the same time, while not emphatically stated, it's assumed that Erebus stole the Anathame, and my issue with this is, since he's such an esteemed advisor, why would he not be at Horus's side during these pivotal negotiations as an ambassador? Thinking about it in more detail too, stealing a single blade does not immediately mean the entire Imperium is enslaved to chaos. I think more work to detail these elements could have been done, which would help make it feel more unlucky coincidence or part of a sinister plan, instead of plot contrivance. Deep diving this a bit more, Loken also tells Horus what was said to him in regards to chaos, which combined with the Jubal incident does make me wonder how much Horus knew about chaos, if anything. This matters for me as the whole point of the heresy working is that the Emperor didn't warn most of the Primarchs about chaos, as knowledge of chaos gives it power, but in doing so, he didn't really prepare them for it either. So if Horus already knew, I don't know, it maybe undermines some of the later storytelling. Let's end on a high though, and in that regard, I'll just add that the cameos from Rogel Dawn and Sanguinius are sick. The first part when Loken finds out Dawn regards him so highly, and then hearing Horus speak of the Emperor firsthand with Sanguinius are some great scenes. Anyway, that is all you get. And as always, f*** Erebus. If you want to check out Horus Rising following this review, it's available from the Warhammer website and in audiobook form from Audible. This concludes the Gameplay Cast review of the Horus Heresy book, Horus Rising.